This video goes over the last 3 questions. First one of those is an equation, the quantity 2x minus 7 raised to the 6th equals 120. To undo an exponent of 6, you use a 6th root. That gives us 2x minus 7 equals, because it's a 6th root, because that's an even root, you have to put a plus minus. And when you look in your 6th column, the number 120 is not there. And if you look at your answer choices, see how our answer choices are decimals? That means that we're going to have to do some rounding. So we need to do the 6th root. Now, if you have a scientific calculator, your keystroke is going to be 6. Let's see, I need to write this somewhere else. Your keystroke will be 6, and then the second button, and then your exponent button, because above your exponent button is a little x root symbol. So 6, your second button, your exponent button, and then type in 120. And when you do the 6th root of 120, you should get the number 2.220906155. So I'm going to round that to 2.22. Okay, now this honestly is kind of different from the problems that we did on our assignments, which kind of stinks, honestly, but oh well. We're going to have to add 7 on both sides and then divide by 2. So at this point, you should split this into 2 equations. So one of our equations is 2x minus 7 equals positive 2.22. The other equation is 2x minus 7 equals negative 2.22. It will be easier to move forward from this point if you have this written as 2 separate equations. We would add 7 on both sides. This one would be 2x equals 9.22. And then divide by 2 to get x equals 4.61. Now, what you're going to notice is that one of your answers is 4.61. There's going to be another answer. So that means that either A is your answer or E is your answer, because you're going to have another answer. And if you know anything about if you know quite a bit about negatives and how this all works, it's probably not going to be negative 4.61. So you could probably at this point already assume that it's going to be 4.61 and 2.39. But let's finish solving just to be sure. Negative 2.22 plus 7 is 4.78. So we have 2x equals 4.78. We take that divided by 2, and we get 2.39. So our answer is 4.61 and 2.39. Because it is an exponent of 6, we have to use an even index radical, an even root, and that leads us to the potential for 2 answers. So 4.61 and 2.39. Next one is 6x cubed plus 12 equals 1. And of course, this one's a little bit funky as well. Notice all of our answer choices are decimals, so we're probably going to have to do some figuring. I would subtract 12 on both sides to get 6x to the 3rd equals negative 11. Divide both sides by 6. Now you could get a decimal here. I'm honestly going to leave this as negative 11/6 because it actually is easier to do the 3rd root of a fraction than it is to do the 3rd root of a decimal. Like, I don't want to have to retype a decimal into my calculator. To undo the cube, we're going to do a cube root. And when we do a 3rd root, a cube root, we do not need the positive negative symbol. It's just going to be whatever it is. In your calculator, you would do 3, the second button, and then your caret button, that's the xth root symbol thing, and then you type in negative 11 divided by 6. Here's how that looks on the graphing calculator, which it actually will look kind of similar on your scientific calculator. On this calculator, we type in 3, we go to the math button, choose number 5, the xth root, and then we type in negative 11 divided by 6, negative 1.22390341. On your scientific calculator, if you type it in correctly, you can use the division button. You don't have to use you don't have to use the fraction button. You can, but you don't have to. but you are going to need to put that in parentheses. So on your screen, it should be 3 and then this x root symbol, and then you're going to want to do parentheses, negative 11 divided by 6, close your parentheses. If you do it that way, the third root of the fraction negative 11/6, you get that negative 1.22 whatever. So negative 1.22, and that is your solution, negative 1.22. And then last, but certainly not least, is rationalizing the denominator. And I forget if I said in class that you would or would not have this, but I think that this is one of the easiest versions of this problem. It doesn't require a bunch of crazy simplification, so I think it's a worthwhile problem. So we have 5 over 8 minus the square root of 6. To get rid of this radical on the bottom, we have to multiply the top and the bottom by the conjugate of the bottom. The conjugate is the same exact number, so 8 and the square root of 6, but instead of minus, we use plus. So 8 plus the square root of 6. On the top, we simply distribute. 5 times 8 is 40. 5 times the square root of 6 is 5 times the square root of 6. And you might notice that some of these answer choices have that as the answer. That tells you that there's not going to be a ton of simplification. So I now know that if it says 40 minus 5 times the square root of 6, that is not going to be the right answer. Okay, on the bottom we double distribute. 8 times 8 is 64. 8 times the square root of 6 is 8 square root 6. Negative square root of 6 times 8 is negative 8 square root of 6. And negative square root of 6 times the square root of 6 is negative 6. Remember, when you do the square root of something times the square root of something, that's the square root of 36, which is simply 6. And because there was a negative in front of that, it's going to be a negative 6. The two middle terms cancel. You're left with 64 minus 6 on the bottom. 64 minus 6 is 58. So we have this 40 plus 5 square root of 6 on the top, and we have, 58 on the bottom. And after you eliminate that answer choice, the only one that has that 58 on the bottom is that answer. So that would be our correct answer. Make sure you've answered all of the questions. And virtual students, I am going to ask that you submit a picture of your work through Schoology. So there will be a way in Schoology for you to submit a picture. That test will have submissions enabled so that you can snap a picture of your work from your test and attach that in Schoology. That way, if there's any question about any of your answers, I can look at your work and see how you did. Uh-oh, it says we missed one. What did we miss? I need to make sure it's not a... I will fix that. This is just in how we put in our answers on the teacher end. So I will get that fixed so that it shows correct on your end as well. Sorry about that.